All right, I think I finally got all my equipment working. It's been a while. I plugged everything back in and nothing was working. So this is a final test. Anyway, here we are working on a goofy project. Now I am lazily, and I do mean lazily, sketching this idea out. I'm working on my Wacom Intuos, and when I was doing this at the time, I think I was just kind of sitting on the sofa with the Intuos on my right hand side and my laptop on the like a coffee table or whatever, and just chilling out and doing some sketching, getting this idea out. It's been hot and I've been lazy, so that's what's going on here. I'm doodling around with an interior that should be a little more comfortable looking, not so utilitarian like you would see in a Mech or some kind of military equipment, more of a living room. And in this sketch, it's a little tighter than I had in mind. I wanted something a little more open and expansive, kind of like the bridge on the Enterprise, next generation kind of thing with the carpet and all the chairs. This idea was inspired by something I saw poking around online. I'm always looking at ideas, seeing what other people are doing, seeing what has been done, and this was inspired roughly, or probably, I guess, maybe by this idea that I saw on Google Images, which kind of went down a mini rabbit hole. It is called the Land Yacht, and the Playboy Land Yacht at that. It was designed by Sid Mead, and Sid Mead, in case you guys don't know, if you're not a big follower of like concept artists and sci-fi art and whatnot, he was a big concept artist in that era from I don't know, probably like the 70s to well into the 2000s. Um, he did art for like the original Aliens, and I think he even did some work for like Star Blazers and Yamato. One of the Yamato or Star Blazers series is he did the concept art for the ships and whatnot. And if you're curious about this guy, he's out there and a wealth of information about his work and himself. In fact, I remember seeing him on the old Sci-Fi Channel, showing off, like the old Sci-Fi Channel. I'm talking like when it first hit cable TV. He was on there showing off some of his works, and he was using 3D Studio Release 4 on MS-DOS, doing a three-way loft to make a three-way loft to make some geometry that he was working on, some car or whatever. And I had no idea how to do a loft, and I was like, damn, this guy's over the top. Anyway, this is I'm really kind of rambling, aren't I? But this was based off of, or inspired by, or I was motivated to try to make a Mech that was more of a luxury, kind of a luxury Mech, and you'd go cruising over not just paved roads, but just marching around wherever, and it would be more of something that you would open up to the consumer market, right? And you'd have some big safe feet, so it would be stable and stompy, and you wouldn't worry about tipping over. And you'd have all the luxuries of a mobile home or an RV, which like Sid Mead's Land Yacht, which is just basically looks like a RV, I guess, with a point coming to a point on the nose. It did have some extras in there. It looked like it had a video game machine mounted into a desk at one of the positions within the RV, with two joysticks and a little screen. It almost looked like some kind of a military or aircraft kind of controls, but it was a video game with this tiny little screen. um, and that's all I'm up to here, is cranking out this goofy design. And I'm going to take it a little bit further and try to build it in 3D. So when we get there, you'll see that. And I try to speed that up. I'm working on trying to figure out how to get some good editing going when I do 3D, because I watch a lot of other people's 3D stuff and my own 3D stuff. And when people are modeling and they try to speed it up and they do that fast forward thing, because watching people model in slow motion or real time is awful. unless you're doing it. So you got to kind of speed it up. But when you're watching it and fast forward, it's jarring and it's awful to watch. And you're seeing this rotations and spins and the zooms, and it's like, what? It'll give you a headache or a seizure at worst. And I'm trying to figure out a way to edit those videos so it doesn't look so awful. But it's a challenge, and I'm trying some different things. We'll see how it works out here. But I'm starting with this sketch, like I'm saying, and we're going to move into 3D shortly. And I'm just playing around with line and getting some kind of rough idea how that thing's going to look from the side. And we're going to open it up into Blender and just try to work out that cockpit. That cockpit had a bunch of, is an odd shape, sort of this wafer, this kind of bulging lens shape, maybe not a wafer exactly. Trying to figure out how to pull that off. I'm going to create that window. I actually had a couple different attempts at this, which failed, but this window is going to be just a part of that main geometry, and I'll separate it and into its own section, into its own separate geometry aside from that bridge or that command area or the crew compartment. I'll do some big legs, keeping it simple and blocky, but trying to give it a little bit of a curvation to it so it doesn't look so right angle-y, right cornered, sharp cornered robot. And just throwing goofy details on there, kind of based off that, just using the drawing as a starting point, throwing some details on there, and whipping up some geometry. So if you are a geometry expert, you can see that I am not a geometry expert. I'm trying to I'm just trying to get that vision out of my head and into the 3D world, or into the 3D modeled space here. With the idea, or with the mind also of a 3D print. Whether it actually goes that far, I don't know, but if I ever just look at this at some point in the future and decide I want to throw it on the 3D printer, it will be less work. So just kind of thinking around that corner. And a lot of this is just nonsense and not very difficult to throw on there. It's easy to throw on some good detail without trying too hard or mastering your geometry. Just keeping the geometry simple. A lot of chamfers or beveled angles and this thing. See, I know I could probably clean this up or do that geometry better. Instead, I just kind of proceeded with the remnants of that sphere to create that hip ball. And coming up with some big, wide, stable feet. So I guess if this would be for the consumer market, right, you're having a consumer Mech or something and anybody could buy, if they could afford it, they would get a big, you got to make it big and safe and stable. And I was thinking of doing some texturing on there, or just doing some texture paint in Blender. So I came back to Clip Studio and tried to come up with a color scheme. Of course, it's gray, blah, and not having much of a plan. I guess I just felt like coming back and doing a little more sketching. I don't know. I mean, it was hard to know what I was thinking when I revisited this. I thought I was done, but here I go. Throwing some Chris Foss-esque color scheme on it. We'll do a checkerboard on that. I am really blasting this out. Oh. Do. All right, good. Let's move on. Let's get out of here. So that's what it would look like. Maybe if I went back and did some texturing in Blender. Actually, that could be kind of fun, kind of cool. But I think sometimes I get into these projects because I spent a lot of time. I got to a point where I was spending a lot of time just messing around with this, and um, you kind of wonder where you're going and how much time you want to spend on it because probably right about this point I start getting other ideas motivated in other directions. But I'm working harder at being a little more disciplined and bringing things to some kind of conclusion so I don't have a pile of 25 or 50% done whatever's floating all over my hard drive. And actually, I'm working on trying to organize my stuff, which is a problem because the more I organize stuff, it just then I try to go back and find it, and feels like I just hid it from myself the last time I was online, and I don't know what I did with any of it. So, I just kind of I don't know. Maybe I just gave up. Maybe I should just give up and leave it go, and I'll find it as I need it. Much like everything else in life. And here, this is about where I felt I was going. I was working a little too hard on it when I was working on this cockpit. I wanted something a little more not so mech combat military cockpity, but I guess I'm thinking Star Trek Next Generation bridge where they look like they're hanging out in the living room with the carpet at on their under their feet and the consoles around them, and they could easily just be eating a bag of chips and watching the big screen TV. All right, we got that big dome window, and the big old dome window would be cool because you could be cruising around and just have a panoramic view. And there we go. This is it. I went ahead and rigged it and put a skeleton on there so I could get a walk cycle on there. So if you're riding around in there, you'd be bumping up and down. And I don't know if that would be something. Maybe you could put some shock absorbers on that head to stabilize that or normalize that up and down motion, or maybe you would like it. Some people might like it. It might be therapeutic. It might make you sick. There it is with the glass dome on there. And if I had the walking land yacht, I might be into it to go for a camping trip or vacation in your Playboy Mech land yacht. All right, if you stuck around this long, I greatly appreciate it, and I'll be doing some more. So thank you for your time. Bye.